I'm Jake, 32, single, no kids, just a guy who keeps his head down and pays his bills. I work remotely, fixing websites for small businesses, nothing fancy. I'm not the loud type, never have been. In my family, I'm the one who fades into the background. My dad, Roy, is the opposite. He's got to be the king of every room, always barking orders like he's running a factory. Mom, Linda, she's softer, always smoothing things over when dad's temper flares. Then there's my older brother, Nate, who's got dad's charm but none of his bite. He's the golden child, always dodging the family mess. We're not tight like some families. We catch up at Christmas or Thanksgiving, maybe a few texts here and there, but there's this undercurrent, like everyone's waiting for the next argument. It was a random Wednesday, late, when Mom called. I was on my couch, half watching some crime show, when her name lit up my phone. She sounded worn out, her voice thin. She said their house, the one they've had since I was a kid, was about to be foreclosed. I froze. I knew Dad's construction business had been shaky, but this? She said he'd been hiding the bank notices, acting like everything was fine, which is classic Roy. He'd rather chew glass than admit he's in over his head. Mom was near tears, saying they were months behind, and the bank was done waiting. I'm not rich. I've got some savings, enough to get by, but nothing crazy. Still, I couldn't just let them lose the house. I told Mom I'd help. I'd move money around, maybe sell some stuff. She told me not to go overboard, but I could hear the desperation in her voice. Over the next week, I drained my checking account, sold my old motorcycle, and even pawned a guitar I hadn't played in years. It hurt, but I wired them every cent I could scrape together, enough to hold the bank off for a bit. I didn't expect a parade, but I figured they'd at least say something. Instead, I got a quick text from Mom. Thank you, we love you. Nate sent me a random emoji, his way of staying out of it. Dad? Nothing. Not a word. I let it slide, thinking maybe he was embarrassed. But deep down, I knew better. Dad's never been big on gratitude, especially not to me. He's always seen me as the screw-up, the kid who didn't follow his path. He wanted me in construction, like him, but I went my own way. To him, that's weakness. I tried to shake it off, but it stung. I'd just given them everything, and it was like it didn't even matter. Thanksgiving rolled around a couple of months after I bailed Mom and Dad out of their foreclosure mess. I was still scraping by, my bank account looking like a ghost town after sending them every dollar I had. Mom begged me to come for dinner, said it'd be good for us to be together. I almost bailed, gas wasn't cheap, and I was still sore about Dad's silence. But I figured family's family, right? So I drove the 2 hours to their place, a knot in my stomach the whole way. The house felt off when I walked in. Mom was bustling in the kitchen, forcing a smile. Nate was on the couch, scrolling his phone, tossing out half-hearted jokes. Dad was at the head of the table already, sipping a beer, acting like he owned the world. The air was thick, like everyone was tiptoeing around something. We sat down to eat, and for a minute, it was almost normal, Mom passing the mashed potatoes, Nate rambling about some work trip. Then Dad started in. He's got this way of turning every conversation into a lecture. He went off about how nobody works hard anymore, how the world's gone lazy. I knew where this was headed. He's always had a chip on his shoulder about me, says I'm too soft, that my computer job isn't real work. I braced myself, but I wasn't ready for what came next. Right there, in front of everyone, he smirked and said, well, at least Jake's good for a loan when we're in a pinch. Can't manage his own life, but he's got cash when we need it. He chuckled, like it was some big joke. I felt my face burn. Mom stared at her plate. Nate coughed. Didn't look up. I gripped my fork so hard my knuckles went white. Usually, I just let it slide, crack a weak smile, and change the subject. Not this time. Something snapped. I looked him dead in the eye and said, maybe one day you'll regret talking to me like that. My voice was steady, but inside, I was shaking. Dad's laugh died. His face hardened. What's that supposed to mean? He snapped. You can't take a joke? I didn't back down. I said, it's not a joke when I gave you everything I had, and you act like I'm nothing. The table went silent. Mom whispered, Jake, please, but didn't move. Nate finally looked up, eyes wide. Dad leaned forward, voice low. You think you're some hero? You think you get to hold that over us? Grow up, Jake. I stood up, chair scraping the floor. I'm done being your punching bag, I said. You want my help? Start treating me like I matter. Dad shot to his feet, stepping toward me like he was going to get in my face. You don't talk to me like that in my house, he barked. I didn't flinch. I told him, then figure out your next payment without me. Mom gasped. Nate tried to say something, but Dad cut him off, yelling about how I'm ungrateful, how I've always been a disappointment. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. Dad followed, still shouting. Mom called after us, voice breaking, but she didn't get up. Nate caught my arm in the hallway, muttering, come on, man, just cool it. I shook him off. I'm done, I said, and walked out. I sat in my truck for a minute, staring at my phone, not really seeing it. Mom texted, please don't be angry. I didn't reply. I drove home, the fight replaying in my head. By morning, I was still mad, but also just tired. I pulled up my bank app, saw the empty balance, and started wondering how long I'd been their fix-it guy. Too long, that's for sure. The weeks after that Thanksgiving disaster were quiet, but not the good kind. It was like the whole family was holding its breath. I went back to my routine. Work, takeout, scrolling through my phone at night, but the fight with Dad kept gnawing at me. I'd given them every penny I had to save their house, and he still treated me like I was some kid who couldn't tie his shoes. Mom sent a couple of texts, short ones like, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Nate tossed me a message about some football game, like nothing had happened. Dad? Not a peep. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung. Then the rumors started. I got a call from my Aunt Marie, out of the blue. She's not the type to meddle, so I picked up. She went on about how family sticks together, how I should let things go. I asked her what she meant, and she got vague, said she'd heard I was causing trouble at home. I pressed her, and she admitted Dad had been talking, saying I'd left them high and dry after helping with the house. I laughed, bitter. Of course he was spinning it. Dad can't stand looking weak, so he was painting me as the bad guy. I told Marie I'd given them everything I had. She got quiet, said she didn't know the whole story, and hung up. A few days later, I got a text from my cousin Tim. "You really cut Mom and Dad off?" I didn't reply, but it was clear Dad was spreading his version of events. I started screenshotting every message, just in case. Then Mom called. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. She said Dad was stressed, not sleeping, and the next mortgage payment was looming. She asked if I talked to him, smooth things over. I asked her if she thought it was fair, how he'd humiliated me at dinner. She sighed, said, "He's just struggling, Jake." He didn't mean it. I told her I wasn't giving them another dollar unless Dad respected me. She didn't say much after that, just mumbled she'd try to talk to him and hung up. The real kicker came a week later. I got a letter in the mail, not from Mom or Dad, but from the bank. It was addressed to me, which was weird. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. Apparently, because I'd wired those payments directly to their mortgage, my name was now tied to the account. Not as an owner, but as someone who'd made significant contributions. The letter said I'd get statements and notices about the loan. Then my phone rang, a collections guy from the bank, asking if I was covering the next payment. I told him I'd call back, my head spinning. I drove to Mom and Dad's that weekend, unannounced. Mom was in the living room, folding laundry. Nate was out, probably dodging the drama. Dad was in the garage, tinkering with some old tools. I walked in, showed Mom the letter. She looked confused, said she didn't know my name would end up on anything. I told her this wasn't okay. I wasn't just handing over money blindly anymore. I wanted every detail of the mortgage, in writing. She nodded, said she'd get Dad to explain. He came in, wiping his hands on a rag, already glaring. "What's this about?" he growled. I held up the letter, said I was done playing games. If they wanted my help, I needed transparency, every bill, every payment. He puffed up, said I was trying to control them, that I didn't understand family loyalty. I shot back, "Loyalty? I emptied my savings for you, and you called me a loser at dinner." His face went red. He slammed the rag on the counter, yelling that I was disrespecting him in his own house. Mom stepped in, voice soft, asking us to calm down. I didn't budge. "If you want my money, it's on my terms," I said. He got in my face, but I held my ground. Finally, he stormed out, slamming the garage door. Mom looked at me, eyes wet, but didn't say anything. I left, feeling like I'd just drawn a line I couldn't uncross. After that showdown at Mom and Dad's, I drove home with my hands tied on the wheel, replaying every word. I'd finally stood up to Dad, told him my help came with strings now, and it felt like I'd kicked a hornet's nest. The next few days were dead quiet. No calls, no texts, not even from Mom, who usually sent little messages to check in. Nate tossed me a random link to a car video, his way of pretending everything was fine. I didn't bite. I was done playing along. I started getting more mail from the bank, statements, payment reminders, all addressed to me because of those mortgage payments I'd made. It was a mess, but it also gave me leverage. I called the bank, told them I wasn't responsible for the loan, but if I paid anything, I wanted direct transfers only, with monthly statements sent to me. The lady on the phone said she'd update my file. I felt a little steadier, like I was taking control for once. Then the family gossip machine kicked into gear. My cousin Sarah texted, asking why I was making things hard for Mom and Dad. I asked what she meant, and she said Dad was telling everyone I was holding their house hostage, refusing to help unless I got my way. I sent her a screenshot of the bank letter, told her I'd given them everything I had, and Dad still treated me like dirt. She didn't reply. Then Aunt Marie called again, saying Dad's health was bad, that I should ease up. I told her if Dad wanted my help, he could start by apologizing. She sighed, said I was being stubborn, and hung up. Mom finally reached out, a text that just said, "Jake, can we please work this out?" I called her back, asked if Dad was ready to talk straight about the mortgage. She got quiet, said he was too proud to do that. I told her I wasn't budging. No more money unless I saw every detail. She said she'd try to get him to agree, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. A week later, I got an email from Dad. Not an apology, just a forwarded bank statement with no explanation, like that was enough. I replied, "I need the full breakdown, every expense, or I'm out." He didn't answer. I went back to Mom and Dad's the next weekend, hoping maybe we could sort it out. Mom was in the kitchen, looking worn out. Nate was there, fiddling with his phone, staying out of it as usual. Dad was in the backyard, messing with the lawnmower. I sat down with Mom, showed her the bank emails piling up. I said, I'm not trying to be the bad guy, but I can't keep pouring money into this without knowing where it's going. She nodded, said she understood, but Dad wouldn't like it. I told her that was his problem, not mine. Dad came in, saw me, and his jaw tightened. He didn't sit down, just leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You here to lecture me again? He said. I kept my voice even, said I just wanted transparency. He scoffed, said I was acting like I owned them. That family doesn't work this way. I stood up, looked him in the eye. Family doesn't mock someone who saved their house. I said, if you want my help, you deal with my rules. He slammed his hand on the counter, hard enough to rattle the dishes. Nate flinched, but didn't say a word. Mom started, Roy, please. But Dad cut her off, yelling that I was ungrateful, that I'd never understand what it takes to keep a family together. I didn't back down. I understand plenty, I said. I understand you think I'm nothing, but my money's good enough when you're desperate. He stepped toward me, face red, but I didn't move. You want to keep this house? I said. Then you start showing me respect. He shouted something about me being a disgrace, but I was already grabbing my keys. Mom called after me, voice cracking, but I didn't stop. Nate followed me to the porch, said, Man, you're making this worse. I told him, No, I'm making it fair. I got in my truck and drove off, the weight of it all settling in. I wasn't just fighting for my money anymore. I was fighting for my place in this family. The silence after that last fight at Mom and Dad's house was deafening. I went back to my apartment, threw myself into work, and tried to ignore the ache in my chest. I'd drawn a line with Dad, told him my help came with conditions, and it felt like I'd burned a bridge. Mom stopped texting altogether, which wasn't like her. Nate sent a couple of memes, his way of dodging the real stuff. I kept every bank email and text, building a paper trail in case things got uglier. I wasn't sure what came next, but I knew I wasn't backing down. Then, one night, there's a knock at my door. It's late, almost 10, and I'm not expecting anyone. I check the peephole. Dad's standing there, hands in his pockets, looking like he's been chewing nails. My stomach twists. He's never come to my place before. I think about ignoring him, but he knocks again, softer this time. I open the door, keeping it half closed. What do you want? I ask, voice flat. He doesn't look at me right away, just stares at the floor. We need to talk, he says, quieter than I've ever heard him. I don't move, don't invite him in. He shifts, clears his throat. I'm not here to fight, Jake. Can I come in? I hesitate, then step back, leaving the door open. He walks in, looks around my small place like he's never seen it. He doesn't sit, just stands by the counter. You're making things hard, he says, but it's not his usual bark. The bank's calling again. We're behind. I cross my arms. I told you the deal. I need transparency. No more handing over cash blind. He nods, slow, like it pains him. I know, he says. I didn't think it'd get this far. I wait, not letting him off the hook. He rubs his neck, looks at me finally. You think I don't appreciate what you did? I do. But you coming in, setting rules, it makes me feel like I failed. I'm stunned. Dad's never admitted anything close to that. I say, you didn't fail because you needed help. You made it worse by treating me like I'm nothing. He winces, doesn't argue. I shouldn't have said that stuff at Thanksgiving, he mutters. I was mad. Not at you, at myself. It's not an apology, not really, but it's more than I've ever gotten. I tell him, if you want my help, I need every bill, every statement in my hands. And you stop acting like I'm beneath you. He nods again, says, fair enough. I don't trust it yet, but it's a start. He leaves without another word, and I sit there, wondering if he's playing me or if he's actually listening for once. The next day, Mom calls. She sounds nervous, says Dad told her about our talk. She asks if I'll come to the house, go over the mortgage stuff together. I agree, but I'm on edge. When I get there, Dad's got a stack of papers, bank statements, payment schedules. It's messy, but it's real. We sit at the kitchen table, Mom hovering, Nate off somewhere else. Dad walks me through what they owe, what's overdue. It's the first time he's ever been straight with me. I don't let my guard down, but I feel something shift, like maybe we're finally on the same side. That meeting with Dad and the mortgage papers stuck with me. For the first time, he didn't fight me when I asked for details. I went home, ran the numbers, and realized their debt was deeper than I thought, but not impossible if we got organized. I told Mom I'd keep helping, but only if we kept everything above board, direct payments to the bank, full statements every month. She agreed, said Dad was on board too. I wasn't sold yet, but I wanted to believe it. A week later, Mom asked for a family meeting, all of us, me, Dad, Nate, her. I wasn't thrilled. Nate's good at skating through drama, and I didn't trust Dad not to flip out again. But I showed up, figuring it was a chance to set things straight. Their dining room felt smaller than usual, the air heavy. Mom had coffee ready, trying to keep things calm. Nate was there, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Dad sat at the head of the table, hands folded, quieter than I'd seen him in years. Mom started, said she hated how things had gotten, how we were all pulling apart. She looked at me, said, Jake, we owe you more than we can say. I'm sorry we didn't show it. I nodded, didn't say much. Dad cleared his throat, looked at me. I was wrong, he said, voice low. I took you for granted. and I shouldn't have. I froze. Dad never apologizes. He went on, said he was ashamed he'd needed my help, and that's why he lashed out. I'm not good at this, he said, but I'm trying. Nate finally spoke up, said he'd been staying out of it because he didn't know how to fix things. I should have backed you up, Jake, he said. You didn't deserve that crap at Thanksgiving. I was floored. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. I told them I wasn't trying to control anyone, just wanted to be treated like I mattered. I'll keep helping, I said, but I need respect, and I need to know where every dollar goes. Dad nodded, said, you'll get it. We spent the next hour going over the mortgage again, laying out a plan. I'd cover the overdue payments, but Dad and Mom would chip in what they could each month. Nate even offered to kick in a little, which surprised me. We agreed to meet monthly, check the numbers together. It wasn't warm and fuzzy, but it was practical. As I left, Mom hugged me, whispered, thank you for not giving up. Dad shook my hand, didn't say much, but his grip was firm. Nate gave me a nod, like we were good. Driving home, I felt lighter, but cautious. Words are easy, sticking to them's the hard part. It's been 6 months since that family meeting, and things are different, not perfect, but better. We stuck to the plan. I make the big mortgage payments directly to the bank, and Mom and Dad cover what they can. Nate sends a small transfer every month, which helps. I get statements like clockwork, and we sit down every few weeks to go over them. Dad's not thrilled about it, but he shows up, brings the papers, answers my questions. It's not like we're buddies, but the yelling stopped. He even asked about my work once, which threw me off. I think he's trying. Mom's back to texting me, little things like recipes or pictures of her garden. It's her way of rebuilding. Nate stepped up too, not just with money, but checking in, actually talking instead of hiding behind memes. The family gossips died down. Aunt Marie called once, said she was proud of me for sticking it out. Cousin Sarah sent a text, apologized for buying Dad's story early on. I let it go. No point holding grudges. The bank stuff's under control. The house is safe, at least for now. I've been rebuilding my savings, bit by bit. Sold a few more things, picked up some extra freelance gigs. It's slow, but I'm not broke anymore. I still get tense when I see a bank letter, but it's just routine now, not a crisis. The biggest change is how I feel. I used to think I was invisible in this family, the guy who only mattered when they needed something. Now, I've got a voice. Dad listens, even if it's grudging. Mom leans on me, but not just for money, she asks my opinion. Nate treats me like an equal. Looking back, I could have walked away, let them sink. Part of me wanted to, after how Dad acted. But I'm glad I didn't. Not because I'm some saint, but because I proved something to them, to myself. I'm not just the guy who fixes their messes. I'm Jake, the one who stood his ground and made them see me. We're not a movie family, hugging it out every day, but we're figuring it out. And for the first time, I feel like I belong here, not just as a wallet, but as a son, a brother. If you're ever stuck like I was, don't let them make you small. Fight for your place. Sometimes, that's what it takes to build something real.